Hi, in this brief video, I want to share with you some thoughts I've been having regarding the mixing of politics with spiritual teachings. This topic's been coming up a lot lately, specifically because of the condition of the world and so much that's going on out there in the world of form. And a few months back, the Internal Revenue Service in the United States issued some sort of change in their policy that indicated that religious institutions could actually, favor political candidates from the pulpit. And this has raised some questions and discussions among my fellow New Thought ministers in the area of what should we do, if anything, regarding politics from the pulpit, politics from our spiritual classes, etc. So there's been that dialogue going on that's driven the interest in this topic for me. Another thing that's come up for me recently is that I've got some family members who are in a more traditional Christian faith, and they talked about the fact that they had to change churches because the church they were in was so adamantly supporting our current president, Donald Trump, that they felt uncomfortable voicing a different opinion in their church. And there were so many people who were feeling uncomfortable with the fact that the church was so much pushing Donald Trump that they felt uncomfortable and felt they needed to change churches. So these two issues have been sort of playing in my mind and raising the question for me, thinking about, well, what do I think about this? What do I feel about it? Is it really appropriate for spiritual teachers to get into the area of politics? And, whether you're a spiritual teacher or somebody who's going to a church or a spiritual teacher for guidance, do you wish to be talked to in a manner where they indicate to you how you should feel and act and vote politically? Ultimately, I don't feel like it's a good idea, and I'm going to explain some of my thoughts as to why I'm not supportive of this in this video. So if it's not clear already, I want to make it perfectly clear that this video is not about directing you to vote in a particular way. I'm simply talking about whether or not spiritual teachers or churches should direct you to vote a particular way. And as I've said already, I don't believe that they should. And that gets back to why I believe that spiritual teachings and places that teach you a particular spiritual philosophy are important. And that's because they serve two key purposes. And those two key purposes relate to my thinking and what I often say in these videos about our spiritual path. And that is that we're spiritual beings who are from a transcendent nature or spiritual realm, who have been immersed into the world of form, into this human story, and that we are moving through the human experience thinking that we're separate and apart from one another, and holding in their minds and making choices to our life based on the relative nature of separation and competition that we see in the world of form. Yet our truth transcends that, transcends it up into higher realms of the mental realm of thoughts and the higher realm of our true spiritual nature. So we come from God, we move through a spiritual life down into this material life, and through this material path that we're moving on is to learn and to grow how to navigate this physical life at a higher and higher rate and to eventually transcend it. And by transcend that, I mean to return home to recognize our unity with all that is. So in that context of that picture that I just painted for you briefly, what is the role of a church or a spiritual teacher? Well, one is to take their teachings and to assist you to navigate this physical world, this human world, with those teachings so that you can live a better life, a more moral life, a higher life, a more fulfilling life here in the human experience. So that's one aspect of a spiritual teaching. But the second aspect of a spiritual teaching is to assist you in seeing that you're more than that, to help you transcend the material physical realm and to recognize that your true source comes from beyond this and dimensions that are higher and greater, to return home. And in fact, the spiritual use of the cross by the Christians, that pattern often is a good reminder for me. So when we hold up the cross, what we can think of as the horizontal bar of the cross represents the teachings that are here in this horizontal world of material form, that a church or a spiritual teacher is giving you guidance and tools that will assist you in working in this horizontal realm of the material. But that vertical aspect of the cross is to remind you that the teachings are to take you to a transcendent nature, to take you beyond the world of earth, and to transcend it and recognize that your truth comes from somewhere else. And so if those are the two key parts of a spiritual teaching, how do teaching politics relate to that? You know, in the early days of most religions, and I'm talking going back 2,000 years now, many of the religions put in a moral code. You could think of like the Ten Commandments and don't kill and don't steal and things of that nature. There were aspects of these moral codes or laws that were designed to help us live together in community in a more civil way. And so they served a useful purpose at that time in our human evolution to get us to move into larger and larger groups of people and live in a civil way where we got along. So we can say that there has been a moral code that's been instilled in us by our religions and spiritual paths for much of our history. And the same thing is occurring now, because as we move upwards and transcend even religions and larger group of people who call themselves spiritual but not religious are looking for ways to transcend form and know God at their own personal level, what they're recognizing is that everything is united, everything is one, that everything has an essence to it that is part of a grand interconnected oneness. And in fact, that is part of our spiritual journey and why religion and spirituality is key, is to help us move beyond our obsession with seeing ourselves as separate and apart from one another and moving to a place of seeing our unity and oneness. So can politics play into that? Well, I certainly think that many of the politics of supporting particular political issues, such as issues that bring us together, issues that support the rights of every person, have a place in our spiritual communities. Spiritual teachings that remind us that every person is valuable has a right in our spiritual teachings. But I also think spiritual teaching should allow us to remember that we have free will, choice, and to allow us to grow and evolve at our own individual way, to know the truth in our own way. As a spiritual teacher, I would like to remind you that we're all one, and for then you to use your free will to go out and look at the political arena and decide for yourself which political candidates support unity. And again, unity doesn't mean uniformity. It doesn't mean we all have to act the same way. But which political candidates support the concept of equal rights for every person, that celebrate the diversity of every person and how they show up and experience this human life? What political candidates are called to support and create a world that works for everybody, no matter what their beliefs, their skin color, their sexual orientation, etc.? If we're all truly one, and that's what spiritual teachings are reminding us, then how can we move to the place of finding candidates that support the creation of a world that supports everybody, no exceptions? If you truly understand those spiritual teachings and the moral underpinnings of them, then you can look at the candidates in your own mind and make your own decision as to who is the one to support. You don't need anybody to tell you who to support, and your spiritual teachings will leave that up to you. So I would encourage you to look out at spiritual teachers or churches, or if you're a minister or a spiritual leader yourself, and you're wrestling with the question of, should I get into politics? Well, get into the business of teaching spiritual truth. And if you do that properly, then you have no doubt that those who are learning from you will make the highest moral choice for the best for all. I hope this has been beneficial. I appreciate you watching.